This happened just last weekend. I'm 26 and I deliver pizzas to help pay my student loans. It was a quiet night, the air was still, and I thought it would be an easy shift. I liked driving through the suburban streets. They felt safe and familiar. I got a delivery to a house at the end of a cul-de-sac. It was darker there, like the shadows were thicker. I parked and thought I saw something in the window, but the lights were off, so I shrugged it off, blaming my tired eyes. After that, things got strange. One order was for a pizza with just pickles. I chuckled. Everyone has their quirks. But then I got a call from that same cul-de-sac house. I went back, knocking on the door. I waited. No answer. Felt off, like I was in a horror movie. I didn't like it. When I got back to my car, I noticed the silence. It was too quiet, even for a Saturday night. As I drove to my next delivery, I thought I heard whispers. They were soft and not in English. I felt cold, so I turned on the radio, hoping it would drown out the unease. My next delivery brought me to another identical house. I knocked, and a woman opened the door just a crack. Her eyes looked vacant, like she was gazing at something far away. She ordered a pizza with extra everything. I nodded, trying to shake off the creeping feeling. It seemed like she was waiting for someone. Something behind me. After that, I felt more uneasy. That house at the end of the cul-de-sac stuck with me. I shared the stories with my coworkers back at the shop. They chuckled, but I didn't laugh. It didn't sit right. Later, I had to return to that house again. I couldn't believe it. My heart pounded as I drove back. The lights were still off. I stepped out of the car, feeling like something was wrong. The night felt heavy. I looked at the window. For a flash, I saw something move. I squinted, but it was gone. The shadows danced, and I thought I heard a voice whispering. I shivered. "Why are you here?" I thought I heard. But when I turned, nobody was there. I stood frozen, my pulse racing. They say pizza delivery can be strange, but this was different. I wanted to leave, but my legs wouldn't move. The night felt alive, and my skin prickled with dread. I was utterly alone. I breathed deeply, trying to calm myself. Maybe it was all in my head. I took a step back toward my car. When I noticed it. The door to the house creaked open just a little. An invitation or a warning? Couldn't tell. In that moment, I felt all the shadows closing in around me. I heard more whispers, and they echoed in the dark. I turned to run, but it was like the night had a grip on me. I didn't know what would happen if I stayed, but I was terrified of what might be waiting for me at that house. I stumbled back, heart racing, and landed against my car door. I was shaking, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. It was just a house, a dark, quiet house. But something about it felt alive, like it was watching me. Then, without thinking, I turned and approached the door again. If I didn't confront this, it would eat at me. The door cracked open more, revealing just enough darkness inside to make my stomach turn. No one was there. I leaned closer, trying to peer inside. The faint sound of breathing echoed back to me, heavy and uneven. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but the curiosity tugged at me harder. I knocked again, my pulse pounding in my ears. "Hello?" I called out, the tremor in my voice betraying my fear. Silence hung between us, thick and suffocating. I stepped back, my hand drying on the camera pouch I always carried for deliveries. I had half a mind to take a picture, to capture the bizarre moment for proof. But just as I raised my phone, there was movement. A figure detached itself from the shadows inside. It stepped forward, but the darkness twisted around them, distorting what I could see. I squinted, trying to get a clearer look. They were tall, impossibly so. Their limbs seemed too long for their body. I inhaled sharply, ready to turn and flee, but then they stopped, and the faintest whisper echoed into the night. "Come in." The voice was soft yet layered with a haunting quality that sent chills up my spine. "I have a pizza," I managed, the words weak and trembling. What was wrong with me? I should have been gone already. The figure moved again, their head tilting at an odd angle. I could barely see their face, but a flash of white caught my eye, their teeth gleaming in the dark. "You bring what we need," they said almost sweetly. It's been so long. What did that mean? I couldn't afford to think. I turned and took off running toward my car. The whispers rose around me, growing into a cacophony, each voice colliding with the next, chanting something I couldn't understand but felt deep in my bones. I fumbled with my keys, shoving them into the lock. That S when I heard it crashing behind me, the sound of the door slamming open. I jumped into the car, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I looked over my shoulder, and that figure was standing in the doorway again, silhouetted against the dull streetlight. "You can't run from us," they shouted, their voice echoing into the night, reverberating with pure malice. I started the engine, heart pounding as I sped away, the shadows swirling behind me like smoke. I glanced back, but the house was already disappearing in my rearview mirror. It looked just like any other home again. I didn't understand what had just happened. The sense of dread lingered, and I could still hear those whispers, weaving through my thoughts as I drove. The unshakable feeling that whatever I had glimpsed inside that house was just the beginning. When I finally got back to the shop, I felt like I was stepping into a different world. The bright lights and laughter of my coworkers felt surreal, like a filter over the horror I had just experienced. I needed to talk about it, tell someone, but how do you explain something you can't fully understand? That night, I would find out just how far this strange delivery would go. I arrived at the shop the next day, my mind racing. I couldn't shake the image of that figure from my thoughts. Everyone around me was busy, chatting and laughing, but all I could think about was the breathy whisper still echoing in my ears. Come in. I filled up the soda fountain, trying to ground myself in the familiar routine. But the normal sounds of ringing phones and orders being called felt distant. I glanced at my phone, wondering if I should message someone, my best friend, Ryan. He always found the humor in everything. But as I thumbed through my contacts, a wave of unease washed over me, and I put my phone down. Minutes turned into hours, and I couldn't focus. Then, just as I was cleaning off a table, the door swung open. A narrow figure entered, and my heart dropped. It was the same tall silhouette. My breath caught in my throat, but as I blinked, the shape morphed and became a customer, a lanky guy wearing a hoodie. "Hey, is this where I can order?" he asked. His voice was normal, but something about him felt off, making me shift my weight nervously. Yeah. What do you want?" I replied, forcing a smile. He leaned against the counter, casually eyeing the menu. "Surprise me. I'm in the mood for something different." He grinned, but it felt strained, as if he was trying too hard to act natural. I hurriedly punched in a random combination of toppings, trying to shake off the sense of danger that still clung to me. But as I worked, I couldn't help but sneak glances at him. He shifted his weight, looking around the shop, and for a moment, our eyes met. A chill ran down my spine. "Is everything okay?" he asked, tilting his head with an unsettling intensity. "Yeah, just busy," I muttered, feeling defensive. After what felt like an eternity, I finished his order and handed him the bag. "Here you go." "Thanks. Do you deliver?" he asked, taking a step closer. Yeah. That's what we do," I answered, wishing I could disappear into the wall. He scanned the room again, and I caught a flash of something in his eyes. "Do you ever take special requests?" Before I could reply, the bell above the door chimed again. Another customer entered, and the tension broke, allowing me to breathe easier. But when I looked back, the guy was gone. I almost checked the door to see if he'd left, but then I noticed something on the counter where he had been standing, a small note. I hesitated, the urge to ignore it battling with my curiosity. I picked it up, my fingers brushing the paper. Scribbled in jagged handwriting were 2 words. "They're watching." The blood drained from my face as the whispers started creeping back into my head. I glanced around the shop, feeling the weight of unseen eyes on me. I could feel the fear clawing its way back, and just as I was about to run out, everything went dark. The lights flickered back on after a heartbeat, but something in the air felt different. I turned back toward the counter, heart hammering in my chest. The note had vanished. In its place stood a shadow, a figure dressed in black with an unmistakable gleaming smile. "Thank you for bringing us dinner," it said, and with a rush of fear, I knew the night had only just begun. I stood frozen, the words hanging in the air like a heavy fog. The figure in black had a smile that didn't reach its eyes, and it felt like nothing more than a mask. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, my instincts kicked in. I backed away slowly, nearly tripping over a chair. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking. "I'm just a friend," it said, tilting its head as if pondering my question. "And I'm hungry." I glanced toward the door, hoping to bolt, but something stopped me, an icy grip of dread that held my feet in place. I didn't want to provoke whatever this was by turning my back. Instead, I stared into those void-like eyes, searching for any sign of humanity. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, and I flinched. It was Ryan. I wanted to answer, to hear a familiar voice, but my heart raced with fear of what might happen if I took my eyes off the figure. "Is that a love letter?" it asked, noticing the way I hesitated. "I'd love to read your little secrets." Before I could respond, an explosion of noise came from the kitchen. Pots clanged, and a loud crack echoed through the shop. The figure darted its gaze in that direction, momentarily distracted. Seizing the opportunity, I dashed toward the back, adrenaline surging through me. In the kitchen, I slammed the door shut behind me and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. My heart was pounding. I quickly checked the room for somewhere to hide. The back door was just a few steps away, but the thought of going out into the darkness alone made my stomach churn. "Are you playing hide and seek now?" It was muffled, but I could hear the figure's voice from the other side of the door. "Don't you know? I always find what I'm looking for." I glanced around the kitchen, gathering my thoughts. I needed to call for help. I fumbled for my phone, my hands clammy as I dialed Ryan. It rang and rang. No answer. Then I heard the soft creak of the door handle turning. My breath hitched. I quickly scanned the room and spotted a rolling cart stacked with flour bags. I scrambled behind it, hoping it would provide at least a thin layer of cover against the chaos unfolding. As the door pushed open, I braced myself. The figure loomed in the doorway, the dull light flickering behind it. Come out, wherever you are," it sang, the voice dripping with mockery. And that S when I saw it, a glint of silver tucked into its belt. A knife. The reality of my situation hit me like a brick. I had to escape. Without thinking, I shot out from my hiding place, darting around the figure. I pushed through the back door into the alley, my lungs burning in the cool night air. But as I skidded to a stop, the fear returned. I could feel it behind me, the weight of its presence pressing in, the knife's reflection chasing me into the darkness. The night was quiet except for my heart racing in my ears. I had no idea where to go, but I knew one thing: I had to keep running. I ran down the alley, my feet pounding against the pavement. A thick layer of silence engulfed the night, but I could still sense it lurking, just a breath away. My mind raced. I couldn't remember the last time I felt so hopeless. The streetlights flickered above me, casting long shadows that danced along the walls, a twisted reminder of my pursuer. Turning quickly, I veered right onto a side street. I needed to put some distance between us, but as I darted into the next alley, I stumbled over something hard. I caught myself against a dumpster, my breath coming out in ragged gasps. I could almost hear its laughter echoing in my mind, taunting me with each unsteady heartbeat. I looked back, half expecting to see the figure emerging from the darkness behind me. Nothing, but I could still feel its gaze, as if it was waiting for the right moment to strike. I couldn't linger here. I took a moment to steady myself, trying to clear my mind. As I wiped sweat from my brow, something caught my eye. A small window was partially open on the side of a building just a few feet away. It looked like an old storage room. Without a second thought, I moved toward it, desperate for shelter. I climbed onto the ledge and pushed the window open just enough to slip inside. Landing in a dusty, dimly lit room, I quickly pulled the window shut, heart pounding. I held my breath, listening for noises outside. All I could hear was the faint thud of my heart. I scanned the room for a hiding place. There were stacks of boxes, old furniture, and a heavy wooden door that looked promising. I hurried behind a stack of boxes, keeping my body low. The room was stale, filled with an odd smell that reminded me of rotting vegetables. As I crouched there, I pulled out my phone again, praying for a signal. Nothing. Suddenly, I heard footsteps outside the door. They were slow, deliberate, echoing in the silence. My heart dropped. I cautiously peered around the box, just as the door creaked open. There it stood, silhouetted in the doorway. The figure scanned the room, its expression impossible to read in the low light. Then it took a step inside and let out a soft chuckle. "You can't hide forever. I'm just getting warmed up." Panic surged through me again. I couldn't stay here. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed myself out from behind the boxes, hoping to escape through the other side of the room. I glanced back, feeling the weight of its gaze, sharp as steel. That's when I spotted something glinting on the floor. Curiosity pulled at me, and I paused, despite the fear bubbling within. Was it a key? I took a risk and dashed toward it, half expecting an arm to reach out and grab me. I knelt down and grabbed it. For a moment, it felt like an anchor in this chaos. But then I remembered the figure. I needed to go. I sprinted toward the door on the opposite side, fumbling with the key as I twisted the handle. It was locked. I turned just in time to see the figure closing in on my position. Suddenly, a bone-chilling howl pierced the night, echoing from somewhere in the distance. The figure paused, looking confused for a split second. It was the distraction I needed. I slammed my body against the door, adrenaline propelling me to push it open against the frame. It gave way, and I bolted into the hallway just as the figure's eyes widened. I had no time to think. I raced down the corridor, knowing the chase was far from over. But I had the key now. Whatever lay ahead might just offer my chance to escape. The hallway stretched out like an endless tunnel, flickering fluorescent lights humming above me. I could still feel the figure at my back, but I dared not look. I needed to keep moving. Every instinct screamed for me to run as I navigated the unfamiliar space. Turning sharply, I saw an open door a few feet ahead. I dashed inside, hoping it led to safety. It was another dimly lit room, cluttered with forgotten furniture and old equipment. My eyes swept the room, searching for another exit. The walls seemed to close in, breathing with the weight of unseen watches. Just as I stepped further in, I heard it again, the soft chuckle. It echoed off the walls, making my skin crawl. This time it was closer. Panic surged in my chest as I scanned for anything to defend myself. A rusted metal pipe leaned against a wall. I rushed toward it, gripping it tightly, heart pounding like a drum. My breath hitched as I heard footsteps nearing the door. A small window in the corner caught my eye. It was barely large enough for me to fit through, but my mind raced. Should I take the chance or face whatever horror lurked in that doorway? The door creaked open, and the figure stepped inside. I held my breath, trying to make myself small. It paused, glancing around, the chuckle still lingering like smoke in the air. I could see it better now, a face framed by shadows, indistinct but somehow familiar. I shook my head, refusing to let my mind dwell on it. Then I made my decision. I wasted no time, hauling myself toward the window. A cold breeze swept in, stark against my sweaty skin. I gripped the frame and pushed, forcing myself through. My body fell out into the alley below, slamming against the ground. Pain shot through my shoulder, but I couldn't focus on that. I had to get up. I scrambled to my feet and bolted. Crossing the alley, I spotted scattered garbage bags maybe 20 feet away. I dove behind them, my breath coming out in harsh gasps. I turned to look back at the window I had escaped from. The figure was there, looking out, scanning the ground below. A shiver ran through me as I crouched lower. As I waited, I noticed the key still gripped tight in my fist. Felt heavy, as if it held more secrets than I understood. What was it a key to? I didn't have time to ponder that now. I peered around the edge of the bags, hoping to see the figure leave. Instead, I saw something much worse. A small group of people, their faces obscured in shadow, emerging from the same doorway. They moved with purpose, and I knew instinctively they were not there to help. My heart raced again. I had to make a decision: stay hidden or try to slip past them through the alley. I pressed against the bags, hoping this would buy me some time. But then I felt it, the cold prickle of fear that something wasn't right. They were approaching. When I noticed the flickering streetlight behind me flicker out completely. Then everything went dark. A heavy silence enveloped me as the darkness swallowed everything around. My heart thudded in my ears, and I strained to hear any sound besides my frantic breathing. The group moved closer, their footsteps dull against the cold asphalt. I could feel the tension in the air, thickening with every second I remained hidden. Then I caught a whisper, faint but unmistakable. They spoke, but their words were lost in the shadows. I held my breath again, desperation rising as I tried to make out what they were saying. I wanted to climb over the bags and run, but every ounce of caution urged me to stay still. Suddenly, the group paused. I had to fight the urge to peer out from my hiding spot. They seemed to be scanning the alley, heads swiveling, searching for something or someone. The light breeze carried their murmurs, still out of reach. I could sense it. Something had gone horribly wrong. That's when I felt it, a hand lightly touching my shoulder. My body jolted, and a silent scream curled in my throat. I spun around, ready to swing the pipe, but I froze as I faced a boy. His face was pale under the fluttering shadows, eyes wide with fear. "Please don't," he mouthed, his voice barely a whisper. I barely knew him, but I recognized the look of panic. He seemed to know whatever I was tangled in was more dangerous than I could understand. "What are you doing here?" I rasped, my voice shaky. I was ready to bolt, yet something about him kept me rooted in place. I was hiding too. "They'll see you," he said, glancing back toward the group that continued their search. "We need to get out now." I could hardly process his words. With the figure from the building still looming in my mind and now these mysterious people searching the alley, I felt like I was caught in some twisted nightmare. Taking a deep breath, I nodded. We had to move, but where? Driven by instinct, I turned toward the other end of the alley, where it seemed to open into a side street. I gestured for him to follow me. We crept along the edges of the garbage bags, every sound amplifying the electricity in the air. The group was still behind us, their voices now clearer, discussing something urgent. "He went this way," one said. I glanced back at the boy, a mix of fear and determination coloring his expression. "What do they want?" I whispered. He shook his head, eyes flickering to the alley's mouth. "I don't know, but we can't let them find us." With that, we burst into the side street, adrenaline surging. The darkness thinned, revealing faint light from buildings up ahead. My legs moved as if they had a mind of their own, pushing us faster toward the safety of the light. Then, I caught a glimpse of something at my feet, an old, heavy metal door partially ajar. I hesitated, feeling drawn to it. The urge to escape from the shadows pulled at me, but the key in my hand felt warm and alive, almost pulsating. "Wait," the boy grabbed my arm. "We shouldn't go in there." When I heard it. A voice, smooth and chilling, echoed from within. "You found me," and I realized there was no turning back. The sudden chill of the voice sent a shiver crawling down my spine. I glanced at the boy, and I could see the conflict on his face. His mouth opened, but no words came out. "We can't stay out here," I shouted, my mind racing between the options. The group was closing in, and panic flooded my thoughts. "We have to," he pulled back slightly. "They'll hear us." Ignoring him, I edged closer to the door. Something about it felt urgent, like it was calling me. I pushed it open just a crack, and a cold wave of air rushed out, tangling around me. The voice echoed again, more insistent this time. "Help me." Before I could think, I stepped inside. The dim light flickered from a single bulb hanging overhead, casting strange shadows on the crumbling walls. The boy followed reluctantly, his face twisted with uncertainty. Inside, the space was cluttered with old crates and discarded equipment. I could make out a figure in the far corner, hunched, shadowy, but whether it was a threat or a plea for help, I couldn't tell. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaking. The figure turned slowly, revealing a face marked by fear and desperation. It was young, maybe a little older than us, but the hollowness in his eyes felt ancient. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped. "They'll come." "Who?" I pressed, an edge of defiance rising in my chest. But the boy behind me tugged at my sleeve, urging me to leave. "Stay. Please," the figure begged. "They're looking for you. You're in danger. You need to understand." "What do you mean?" I asked, unable to tear my gaze from him. "The people searching the alley, they're not looking for just anyone. They want you." My heart raced. The boy beside me went pale. "We have to get out now," he whispered harshly. "Wait," I snapped back, torn between fear and curiosity. The answers felt like a lifeline. "What do you know about them?" The figure stepped forward, shadows playing tricks on his face. "You don't understand what they'll do if they catch you. They can do terrible things. They won't just take you away." Fear pooled in my stomach. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, a loud crash erupted from outside the door, the sound of heavy footsteps echoing in the night. The boy's grip on my arm tightened, panic flickering in his eyes. "We have to go." The figure's face hardened, urgency replacing the desperation. "You don't have much time. Trust me. If you want to escape, go to the doors at the back of this room." I hesitated, glancing between the figure and my only ally. The voices outside grew louder, the urgency swelling. Something was coming, and it was close. Then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of footsteps heading our way, fast and final. I felt the walls closing in. "Now!" the figure shouted, pointing toward the back. "Run!" I didn't think twice. I turned and dashed into the dark room behind me, dragging the boy along. Behind us, the door rattled violently as heavy hands pounded against it. What lay beyond was unknown, but whatever it was, it couldn't be worse than what was chasing us. Or could it? We sprinted through the cramped space, adrenaline pushing us forward. The dim light barely illuminated the path, and I stumbled on something, a crate? Whatever it was, my foot caught, and I nearly fell. I quickly regained my balance, glancing back at the boy. His eyes were wide with fear. "Keep moving," I urged, my voice low but urgent. We reached the back of the room, where a set of doors stood slightly ajar. I peered through the crack, and a rush of cold air hit my face. I couldn't see much, but it felt like freedom was just beyond that threshold. "Are you sure?" the boy whispered, his tension palpable. I nodded, knowing there was no choice. "We have to take the risk." I pushed the door open wider and stepped through, dragging him along. The hallway was dark, barely more than a narrow passageway. The air was thick with dust and smelled stale. I didn't like it. I wanted to turn back, but I felt those footsteps still echoing behind us, urging me forward. We raced down the corridor. The only sound was our panting breaths and the soft creaking of old wood beneath our feet. It felt like we were running in a dream where the shadows would swallow us whole if we slowed down. Then, midway through the hallway, I saw a glimmer of light at the end. I focused on it, ready to break free. Just as we got closer, a loud crash resonated behind us. I glanced back to see one of the doors we just fled from disintegrating under the weight of something massive. "Faster!" I shouted, propelling us forward with panic-driven energy. We reached the end of the hall and burst into a room filled with flickering screens. The sight nearly stopped me in my tracks. There were images overlapping faces, symbols, dark shapes marching relentlessly. "What is this?" the boy gasped, eyes darting around the room. I don't know," I stammered, my heart racing not just from fear but from a surge of confusion. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the noise, the blaring of an alarm, echoing throughout the space. My instincts screamed at me to hide. I scanned the room, looking for a place, but all I could see were wires and monitors. "Over there," the boy said, pointing to a small closet-like space against the wall. I didn't argue. We bolted over, squeezing inside just as the blaring intensified, and footsteps thundered closer. Inside the cramped space, we pressed against each other, holding our breath. The boyish eyes darted around, filled with worry. "What are they going to do to us?" "I don't know," I whispered back, but we need to figure out a way out of here. Before I could finish, the door to the room swung open. I held my breath, my heart pounding like a drum. Check everywhere. A harsh voice ordered from the shadows. They can't have gone far. I felt frozen, fear blocking every thought. Then everything changed, and in that moment of dread, I understood one crucial thing. We weren't just running from anyone. That voice was familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. That S when I realized I knew who they were. My heart dropped as recognition settled in. I couldn't place the voice exactly, but something about it twisted my stomach, warming the creeping dread I'd been experiencing. As the footsteps grew closer, my thoughts raced, flashing back to a time when I heard that cadence, that commanding tone. It belonged to someone I once considered a friend. "Stay quiet," I whispered to the boy beside me, whose eyes were wide with panic. I wanted to tell him everything would be okay, but I didn't even believe that myself. The voice spoke again, sharper this time. "Check the closet first. They have to be in here." "Why?" I mouthed to the boy, but he just shrugged, fear painting uncertainty across his features. He squeezed my hand tightly, and I fought the urge to run out. I couldn't let them see us, not now, not like this. The door creaked open slightly, spilling light into our hiding spot. I struggled to keep my breathing steady as the tension thickened. I could hear their footsteps inching closer, the sound of their shuffling feet echoing ominously in the small space. "Maybe they went down the hall," another voice suggested. "They can't have gone that far, right?" "Doesn't matter," the first voice replied. "They'll be ours soon enough." Fear clawed at my insides, fueling my need for survival. But how? I could feel the figures outside moving around, and my mind began painting worst-case scenarios, each darker than the last. "Listen," the first voice said, now closer. "We're out of time. The longer we wait, the worse it gets for them." My breath caught. I tried to think clearly, but it felt impossible under the pressure. I glanced at the boy. He was trembling, gripping the edge of my sleeve like a lifeline. "Let us split up," another voice declared. It was chilling, filled with confidence and malice. A deep-rooted fear washed over me. "No," I wanted to shout. "You can't leave." Suddenly, the boy let out an involuntary gasp, and just like that, the door swung open. I braced myself for the worst as the light flooded in. I locked eyes with the figure just steps outside. It wasn't just one of them standing there. No, there were three, their shadows merging into one grotesque mass against the walls. A wave of recognition crashed over me as I looked at each face, albeit partially obscured in the dim light. They were people I knew from the neighborhood, but they were different now, hollow and dangerous. "Found you," the tall one grinned, a sinister glint in his eyes. Desperation sparked in the pit of my stomach, and I pulled the boy closer as I got to my feet, my body trained to run. I had no time to process what they wanted or why they were like this. I only knew we had to escape. "We can outrun them," I told him. "Are you ready?" He nodded, determination replacing some fear. But before we could make our move, they lunged forward in unison. Instinct kicked in, and I pushed the boy toward the side door. "We have to jump," I screamed as I barreled ahead, grabbing him by the shoulder and sprinting toward the back exit of the room. We reached the door just as the figures closed the distance. I yanked it open, and the stale air rushed at us as we tumbled through, hurtling into the bright moonlight outside. I had only a moment to appreciate the stars before we thundered forward again. The haunting echo of those footsteps chased us, mingling with the whispers of shadows that seemed to beckon from the depths of the alley. We darted down an adjacent street, lunging as fast as we could. "We can't stop," I said, glancing back to see how close they were. The figures in the distance overshadowed the alleyways, gathering and expanding, their shapes transforming into something almost ethereal. "What do we do?" The boy panted, fear overwhelming every inch of him. "Just keep moving," I urged. But the truth tightened around my chest. Where were we going? The night had consumed too much, and even in our frantic escape, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were more than shadows. They were almost a part of the night itself. We began sprinting toward the nearest open space, a park just on the corner. It flashed ahead, a beacon of hope. There. I pointed, and we surged ahead, pushing ourselves harder than ever. Then the whispers came again. This time, they surrounded us, slithering into my mind, reminding me of everything that chased. Were they merely figments of a terrified mind or something truly powerful? I didn't know, but the answer eluded me as we burst into the park, a relative safety. As we slowed, panting and desperate, the shadows receded momentarily. I glanced back and saw our assailants morphing into the night, twisting like smoke. Yet their eyes, those familiar eyes, still retained their haunting intensity. I turned to the boy. His expression mirrored my own confusion. "What do we do?" he whispered, uncertainty clinging to his voice. "I don't know," I admitted darkly, "but we have to find help." We moved toward the park entrance, hearts still racing, every instinct pulsing for survival. Just when I thought we could make it to safety, I felt a tremor in the ground beneath us, as if the earth itself disapproved of our existence. "We have to hurry," I said, looking around. The shadows hung on the edges of my vision, lingering like a dark promise. "I have a bad feeling about this," the boy confessed, his gaze darting between hiding spots as if expecting them to emerge from the dark. As we moved, I couldn't shake the thought that whatever had awakened in that house was far from over. Did those who watched from the shadows even want us alive? I couldn't tell anymore. Maybe I'd never understand what had truly transpired that night. Would I ever look back and see it clearly? The shadows were still there, lingering at the edges of my thoughts, waiting for the moment I'd least expect it. And though we escaped, I realized we might never be free from what we had encountered. We stepped out of the park and back onto the street, uncertain. The night still had a grip on us, one that wouldn't easily let go.